In the next phase of my mental health journey, I was on a low. And in that low, I had just returned to France. I had just returned to family. And I actually had to check with my family to get their opinion to remind myself, how was I? The long story short, short answer is a zombie. And I don't really remember much about that phase, but I was up and down in mood. So I was very numbed out. Um, I would struggle to do anything. Really low motivation. I would need help to go to the bathroom. I would not be a pleasant person to be around or living with. It was a struggle. Uh, I remember this lasted probably a few weeks to a month, until my mom had got us a trip to Portugal for my birthday because I had just turned 25 at that point. And she told me that I was not interested in anything around that trip except for the technical stuff, like planning how do we go from point A to point B, what metro, what bus to use, this kind of cognitive, maybe technical thinking was something that interested me, but everything else didn't really care. Um, didn't care much for the trip, for the culture. I was eating a lot, apparently, um, but very, yeah, low energy and low motivation and low care. Um, Another kind of pivotal thing about Portugal, though, is I had accidentally forgotten my medication at home. So the Portugal trip was probably about a week, maybe 5, 7 days, something like that. We did maybe Lisbon, Porto, few places. Um, but I had genuinely forgot the medication. It wasn't a plot to not take them. And we realized this on the first day in public transport. I'm pretty sure we were on a train where I realized, and so we called the psychiatrist immediately. We were like, "Oh my God, we forgot the medication. What should we do?" And he was like, give it a try without medication and see how it goes. If some symptoms get worse, then let me know, kind of a thing. Um, and actually, it wasn't so bad. So although I was still kind of knocked out, from that point onwards, I didn't come back to take medication when I came back in France. I actually stopped. And we continued with the stop. And although my mood was still pretty low for another month or two, I remember having Christmas with family and being very ooh, and family was, kind of empathizing and not recognizing me as a person. This is the first time they've seen me in this condition, and they were like, "This is not the Anthony we know." Um, so then another 1 month or so passes by, and as that whole time passes by, my symptoms start getting better. And then I remember I started actively making plans. I went on a trip on my own to at first Berlin and then a couple of places in Eastern Europe, Slovakia, where I did a workaway volunteering thing for 3 weeks, had a bit of a social life, a little bit of fun, new connections, new experiences. I finished in Slovenia and Venice, and then I came back, and that kind of felt like the mark of a next phase, the mark of, okay, I've just got a few more months. I go back to the US, I see my girlfriend, and I go to the graduation, and then I make my plans for getting my life back on track. And from that point, I actually started applying for jobs. I got a job, and then I moved to the UK. So this was more or less June when graduation was in May. So yeah, that period of 6 months, um, probably the first 2 months I was recovering from the low, and the 2 months prior to that I was in the big of the low. But in yeah, about the in that Portugal trip was about November that I stopped the medication, and that was a pivotal point, which was actually completely unintentional, and it marked not being on medication then for another 2 years, more or less, or year and a half, let's say. Yeah, more or less, almost 2 years actually. Um, but in the next video, I'll actually talk about the things that have helped in my journey since the last episode, which was 5 years ago from today, and how I actually got better. What were the factors that made me now in a position where I can reflect back on this and um, kind of document it in my mind, archive it, put it in the put it in the library and move forward, kind of the grieving process of, okay, this happened to me, I needed it because of this and that, and now that it's done, I can move forward with this ritual that I'm gonna do very soon.